Hello, dear friends, and welcome to Ukraine Talk. My name is Ivan Tarn. I'm a veteran of the Russo-Ukrainian War, and I'll be your host. For me, this podcast is a mission to challenge the distorted narratives and amplify Ukrainian voice in the world. Together, we'll explore historical context, dissect public views, and share personal experiences. On this very first episode, my guest is Yeang, Chief Operating Officer of the Inertia Network, an unconventional travel agency, and co-founder of the Bird of Light Ukraine, a charity that has helped thousands of Ukrainians. Isaac, welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for finding the time. Isaac, I know you have been in Ukraine when the full-scale invasion erupted. Can you share some of your experiences? How were those first days?
How are those first days? Well, why don't I first tell the story about how I got there, because it gives some context on this.
Sure.
So I started this charity together with my partner Jana. I'm obviously not Ukrainian, but she is, and she came to Ukraine in actually December of 2021, just before the invasion, actually to meet her biological father for the very first time.
And you came with her?
I came shortly after. She hasn't seen her biological father for 32 years, so almost her entire life.
Okay.
It's actually a funny story because I run this travel company, Inertia Network, and we did a trip to Egypt. She was meditating inside the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and she got a sign, from God or whatever, to go see her father because she knows her father doesn't have much time to live. So she goes there and meets her father for the first time in 32 years and has a beautiful experience. But meanwhile, this is happening. I know war is coming. It's on the news. It's becoming
has been hanging in the air
for a very long time. Maybe it's becoming very apparent. And I actually run a travel company to very weird places, like we do Afghanistan, like Syria, Iraq, Yemen. Like I'm very comfortable in stressful environments. So I figured I'm not going to tell her to leave, because when you see your father for the first time, you can't tell him you have to leave. I'm going to go there instead and help if something happens. So I go to Ukraine and expecting like war is going to break out, something's going to happen. I need to do something. And it does, and everyone remembers. I'm sure you remember, like everyone remembers perfectly that what they were doing in that morning. It was like 5 a.m., sirens going off, and we look at each other like, fuck, it's actually happened. Today's the day.
You're in Kiev, right?
I'm in Kiev at this moment.
And the bombing has already begun.
Yes, because like I look on the phone, it's like, okay, the helicopters, the Ka-52s took off. And I saw there's a picture. I don't remember if you remember. There was a picture of these helicopters on the highway in Belarus the day before. And it's like, okay, there's no way you put helicopters on a highway unless you're invading the next day. Yeah, for no reason. So this starts happening. They start flying over to the reservoir north of Kiev. And it's like, okay, I got to get a train ticket. I got to figure out how to get a car. And I don't know what's going to happen. So I got to go get all the cash I can get. I got to go to the supermarket and buy all the food that doesn't go bad. So like oatmeal and salo and water and all this stuff. And eventually, though, we managed to find a car, and we start driving west in the evening. The 24th at nighttime at like 10 p.m. We decided to leave. Everyone's leaving Kiev. Everyone's leaving to east at this point. And so we spent 2 days driving to the border of Moldova. It's crazy. Wow, it's massive.
So it's a drive of about 6, 7, maybe 8 hours on the. If you do it on a normal day, relaxed, and it took you 2 days.
Yeah, but the whole country. I mean, the whole country was moving at that time.
Yeah, everybody was on the move.
Yeah, and meanwhile we're driving. There's trucks. I mean, like there's so much the bravery of the soldiers at that moment, because everyone thought Ukraine would fall in 2 days. No one thought the Ukraine would have so much bravery and courage to fight against the second most powerful country. And all these soldiers were driving back towards Kiev, back towards, wherever. But eventually we make it to the border of Moldova, and we look at each other and we say, we don't have to go, because if we leave as foreigners, you're done. You never come back to Ukraine. You don't do anything. You just go home. But if you stay, we can do something. So we decided to stay. And then we turn around and we drive to Chernivtsi, because one of her friends has a place we could stay there. We live inside or a rehabilitation center for children. I don't know. It's Sublime Tatena. I don't know. And then we stay there, and then we start figuring out what do we do, because all these mothers and fathers are coming. They have nothing. They're babies. They're wearing flip-flops, slippers, whatever clothes they had, 2 nights ago.
You mean other displaced persons
Yes.
who are
Yeah.
coming to this shelter?
Yes, people from like Kharkiv, from Dnipro, Kiev, like everyone starts driving there. And now all of a sudden the population of Chernivtsi is massive. And they said, we have no baby food. We need food for our babies. So then we decide, okay, we'll raise money, we'll buy baby food. And that's how we started.
That's how you founded the Birth of Light Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the origin story. And I can tell you more, but we've done everything now. We've brought like drones, night vision, ambulances. We brought food and hygiene, a month of food and hygiene for over 90,000 people. We're digging like 10 more wells for the Kahovka, like Kryvyi Rih region where they don't have water. We do everything now. It's crazy.
Could you share a bit more about what you have been able to achieve so far?
Yeah.
I've been looking through your website, and I must say it's quite inspiring.
Yeah.
To
Thanks.
see the results you have been able to realize with such a small team, actually.
Yeah. Like I think what makes us special is just the way that we operate. Because I mean, there's so many Western charities like UNICEF and all these guys who come in and they have a team from America, team from Germany, whatever. And how do you do things in Ukraine? Like they don't speak the language, they don't know the culture, they don't know how the country operates. Oh, yeah, this is when we were doing our food program. This is food bags we were packing all day long. Is a lot of food. But yeah, I mean, it's just hard. It's hard to operate. But what we do, like we just ask the Ukrainian people, what do you need? How can we do it? And so we never do things alone. We always partner with a ton of different groups. We partnered with like Vova, with Spila Meta. We worked with all sorts of different Ukrainian charities, because everyone will do a piece. They might handle distribution. They might help us with transport. They might help us with figuring out where to buy things. And so we come together as a small team, but we work with a large network of Ukrainian charities. So yeah, we've done 5.5 million in aid. And only 3% of that is going to expenses. So we're very efficient. And we've helped about 250,000 people so far, if my math is correct.
Well, that's so inspiring, and thank you for everything you have done and everything you have achieved. It's an amazing story for me. Could you tell us a bit about your future plans or what you are working on now?
Okay, I'll tell you a bit about my plans, but I also want you to tell your story to
Oh,
everyone,
sure,
because I
sure.
think you have a lot of things to say. But yeah, I mean, like we're always trying to work on the next thing that needs help, right? Like when we were doing our food program, we were doing it until UNICEF could come in to fix it, or the UN to come in, because they take a very long time. But when they're going, they have millions and millions of dollars. So
Yeah.
we're always looking for what is the next problem. And for us right now, we're focusing on building foster homes for children, because children are the future of Ukraine. Like these kids have lost 2 years to COVID. They have lost 2 years to war. They need all the help. They need educators. They need social workers. A lot of kids need foster parents to take care of them. I mean, because if a child that was 14 years old when COVID started is now 18, they're an adult, and that's a
Yeah.
lot of time in a child's life. So we're working right now with the Coordination Center for Family Upbringing. initiative under Zelensky's office to reform childcare from institutional orphanages to foster homes. And so we're trying to fundraise for that effort right now. And we're doing a gala in New York for that soon.
And when is this gala?
February 7th.
February 7th, New
Yeah.
York. So
New York.
any of our viewers are interested, they can contact you for tickets.
Yeah, contact me, email me. Yeah,
Great.
we're looking to raise money.
Great. And I would encourage all our viewers to pay a visit to your to the website of your charity, birthoflight ukraine.org. There is a lot of inspiring stories and more information there.
Yeah, but that's enough of me. Let's hear about you, man. I want to ask you the same question. Where were you when that started?
The night of 24th, I was in Lviv. Well, let's give a bit of a background story. I'm Ukrainian, from Ukraine. From my birth or town is Ternopil, western Ukraine. But most of my life, I've lived in Europe, Belgium, mostly. It has been 2 years now since I returned to Ukraine. A bit before this, the talk of invasion was going around, I decided to return to Ukraine and to spend more time here. I had my work all set up to be able to work from Ukraine, and that's what brought me here. On February 24th, a good friend of mine has his birthday, and me, together with a group of friends, organized a surprise for him at 12 o'clock midnight in Lviv, the central square of Lviv, to congratulate him on his birthday. And it's like the thing I'll never forget, when we were like congratulating him and we were like offering our best wishes. We asked, what would you wish to yourself? And he said, like, most important thing is peace, that everybody would live in peace. And on that note, we left. I returned to Ternopil and I was back home around 4 in the morning. And I heard a military plane flying over the city. That never happens. Actually, I never experienced that. I went on flight radar and saw that there was no commercial flights over Ukraine whatsoever. Only one lone US Reaper was like returning from eastern Ukraine, was somewhere towards Bulgaria as it seemed. So I realized something has begun. They did some internet searches, but couldn't find what was going on right then. But I got a call from a family member of mine who lives in Kiev, near to Kiev, and she was like panicking and saying, "Well, we are being bombarded, and we are leaving towards the west now. Can we come to your place?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So the first few days for me were like organizing the evacuation of friends and family, women and children, mostly. Then when we organized this evacuation path, we had a transfer from Ternopil to the border of Romania, and there we had contacts with Romanian volunteers who provided shelter for people who arrived, and helped them on the other side of the border. Once that all was taken care of, and I assembled some of the gear necessary for myself, I went to the east. First Kiev, then Kharkiv, then when Kharkiv got a bit quieter, back to Kiev. There I met guys with whom we eventually started my unit where I was served, and I'm still serving. It has been a very, very interesting journey. I never in my wildest imagination could imagine something like that.
You served in French Foreign Legion, right?
Oh yes, when I was 19, I joined the French Foreign Legion. So it gave me
Hmm.
a good base for what awaited me here after the full scale invasion. But nothing can prepare you for a full scale
Absolutely not.
war.
No.
It's something on a completely different level.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's very few. Like NATO doesn't fight any equal wars. I mean, NATO countries. It's always like some poor country and 200 years of technology. And this
Yeah,
Ukraine is like is brutal. It's nothing like anything.
no, a conflict like this hasn't been seen since, I guess, Second World War,
Yeah.
where you have almost peer adversaries,
Hmm.
and where all systems available are used for war, and with in such ferocious scale.
Yeah. And I
So
guess I want to also like point out to the listeners, like Ivan was recently wounded actually, and he
yeah,
just finished rehabilitation.
I finished my rehabilitation, and now I have a 1 month leave, like additional
Yeah.
rehabilitation. After New Year's, I'm hoping to rejoin my unit. I was injured in Bakhmut beginning of the year. Stepped on a landmine.
Hmm.
As a result of, I lost my foot, so I'm wearing a prosthetic now. Uh, that has been a very interesting experience for me. But the rehabilitation went quite well. I would say like 80-90% of the abilities I had, I managed to retain.
Yeah.
Thank God I was quite athletic be, be, before I got injured, so it helped me a lot
Yeah.
with my rehabilitation now.
Yeah. That takes some serious balls, man. To get injured and you want to go back to the front line. You want to go back to your unit. That's I mean, a lot of people will not have the guts for that after they get injured.
I thought about it because many people ask me, like, what are your plans? What are you planning to do? How did you get over all of that? On the 24th February 2002, I made a decision for myself that I'm all in,
Yeah.
and that might probably mean that I won't survive it, because that's just how it goes in war. I had my motivation for that. It was patriotic. It was about fighting evil in this world.
Hmm.
But when you are in battle, when when you feel the artillery coming down at you, when it's like all hell breaks loose, uh, those higher motivations, they tend to vanish,
Hmm.
and the only thing that remains is like your comrade on your right and your
Yeah.
comrade on your left, and it's for them you're fighting.
Hmm.
That's the only thing that keeps you in the fight,
Hmm.
because if you give up, they'll,
They're
well,
counting on you.
yeah, they count on you, and if you give up, you will, well, it might bring your comrades and colleagues into a very, very hard situation and
Yeah.
even lead to their demise.
Yeah.
So that's the most important motivation.
Yeah. I
Like,
think a lot of U.S. veterans, I think they really relate to that because they say like, I I guess they always say like they don't know why they're in like Iraq, they don't know why they're in Afghanistan, but they're doing it for their brothers.
yeah,
And that's I guess that's what kind of like messes them up when they come back. It's like, why did I go to that war? In the moment, you did it for your brothers, but why after? But I guess that's why so many Americans and so many foreigners want to go to Ukraine to help because it truly is fighting against evil, a greater cause, and it's there hasn't been a war that's so cleanly good versus evil in so long. It's hard to say what is good today, but this is very much that case, and that's I relate to that. That's why I'm not in the front line, but like I feel that way. Like this is important. It's we have to continue with it.
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it is a very, very simple story. It's like a peace-loving country has been invaded by its bigger and stronger neighbor just to subjugate.
Yeah.
So it's clear-cut story, but still we can see that the Russian propaganda machine tries to turn it into something completely different, or at least they want they try to bring doubt
Hmm.
to this simple narrative. Like, and it's amazing for me that so many Western intellectuals actually buy into this narrative, into this premise that, oh,
Yeah.
it's not as simple. We provoked Russia for to this aggression. That it's something I can't grasp my mind around.
Well, let's get right to it because this is the point of the podcast, right? Let's
Yes, it
talk about it.
is. It is. Well, my intention or inspiration for this podcast is to combat
Hmm.
these narratives that try to mess with people's perception.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. I think it's if we don't talk about it, like it's easy to accept it because it's if who you're surrounded by is someone who just accepts it, you just think, okay, this is normal. The Ukrainian voice, you know, other voices out there, like they have to be also being spread. So
yeah,
like
there
let's
has to
talk.
be a conversation about this topics. It's very, very serious, and we can clearly see that Russia is pouring a lot of resources and energy into pushing their narratives, and they
Yeah,
have been doing this for years and years, and they are very good at it
they're very good.
because they have the resources and they have the experience,
Hmm.
and they have been doing this for ages, basically,
Hmm.
since the Soviet Union.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to combat that.
So why don't I let's talk about this a little bit more because I think and I guess I want to reply to you about these Western intellectuals who have bought into Russian propaganda. And I guess this is something a lot of people are not aware of. I mean, there's definitely a few categories, but I want to talk about, in particular, the one category that is interesting to me that people aren't aware of are what I would call the political realists. Now,
Yeah.
for the viewers who don't know, realism is a political theory that was basically like it really emerged under the Kissinger era. You know, rest in peace. I mean,
in
I'm
the
not.
in the in US, Henry Kissinger, the late Henry Kissinger, is the one who is responsible for implementing and popularizing these policies.
Yes, absolutely. And it was in the Nixonian area. That was when realism was really a thing. And I guess to explain a little bit, realism is basically believes in first of all, the world is kind of anarchistic. There's no set rules. Countries have rules, but that really doesn't matter. It comes down to the benefits and the cost. Everyone is acting in their own interest. And also, the realist view separates the world into spheres of influence. And actually, this is where the term first world, second world, third world comes from. because the first sphere of influence is the American sphere of influence, right? Now you have America, you have the countries under it. You have parts of Europe, you have like Canada, you have like Mexico. These are American sphere of influence. Then they had the idea of the Russian sphere of influence. So this was the like Poland, Belarus, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, these countries. And I mean, now you can say there's also a Chinese sphere of influence. But because they are looking at the world in terms of nation states, they when you look at the world in this way, you forget that it doesn't have to be under spheres of influence. So for example, like even like Noam Chomsky, he is a very liberal kind of guy, but he is not exactly completely for Ukrainian independence, because from the realist point of view, Ukraine is a country under the former Soviet sphere of influence. It is under Russian sphere of influence. It is in it's Russia's problem. It's Russia's thing.
Yeah.
It's not ours to touch.
And I would just want to interrupt you briefly and add that for Noam Chomsky in particular, he doesn't even seem to realize his bias to realism. It's just the way that he looks at the world through this perspective of realism policies.
And I think that's a huge issue, because there's so many people who were born basically from 1940, they're almost dead, until now, who have lived knowing nothing but realism in international relations. So there's just an assumption that, yeah, Kazakhstan will always be under Russia's thumb. Ukraine will always be under, and they can't comprehend what that looks like. And because they also look at the world in terms of cost benefits, you lose something in that, because not everything is just about cost and benefit. I mean, the example I give is, what is the benefit of America going to World War II? It's not so obvious before you go in there. You might fight the war yourself. You might lose a lot of men. What's the economic benefit? You'll still trade with Nazi Germany. They're kind of capitalist, just like China. But Russia is your real economic enemy. There's no benefit because they are communists. You don't conduct business. And so, but there was massive benefits at the end of it.
Yeah, it's a great point. There was no arguments for the United States to join the Second World War if you would view it through realpolitik narrative. But US still joined on idealistic views, and enough time has passed for us to analyze that historical situation and to conclude that they reaped enormous benefits.
Massive benefit. I mean, besides Pearl Harbor, I guess Pearl Harbor kind of pushed them, but if that wasn't there, right? Like, how does it look? And then so, it's a shame, because like people like Elon Musk, right? They look at it from that realist view, and so many U.S. politicians, because they think of like the cost of the war is like there could be a nuclear strike, but I mean, what is really is that really the cost? Is that really going to happen? And what is the benefit that they're ignoring? And I actually think this is a very important topic to discuss, because I think this is actually what holds back more aid to Ukraine, because you can see America has been very slow to give aid, like a little bit here and there. Ukraine is
just
surviving.
Just enough to hold on, not enough to
win.
To win, yeah.
Because they're afraid. They're afraid of, what if Ukraine strikes Moscow? What if Ukraine takes Crimea? They're afraid of it. And yes, they will give, but I think this is the realism argument, is what we need to tackle in order to get the aid to win this war truly.
No, Isaac, in my opinion, the implementation of realpolitik by countries like the United States is morally untenable, because in its core, the United States is an ideological state.
Mm-hmm.
It stands for freedom, liberty, human rights, democracy, and rule of law. And realpolitik, on the other hand, is based on considerations of mercantile circumstances and factors, rather than following the ideological, moral, or ethical principles. So, in my view, when United States engages in realpolitik, it betrays its core values. But I want to be very careful stating this as as an outsider to Ukrainian to the American society. But that's still how it feels to me.
I absolutely agree. I think there is a place for realism because, I mean, just like if anything, you have to calculate your costs and benefits. But I agree with you. If America really believes, that they are the land of the free, land of democracy, what comes first? Is it the cost benefit or is it the idealism? And I think the ideology must come before any of this.
Yeah, and Second World War is a great historical example of when ideological decisions are made. They reap enormous economical
There's a lot
gains.
of benefit.
Yeah,
I mean,
they bring a lot of economical benefits.
yeah, I mean, I would even like give another example is like what great business is only about money, right? For example, if you see the story of Apple, Steve Jobs wasn't trying to get the most money. He was just trying to make the product that he loved, right?
Yeah,
But
and
as a result of his ideology, it got there.
I have an economic education myself,
Hmm.
so for me it's a very clear story how America benefited and is still benefiting from the decisions that were made
Hmm.
in the 40s with the Marshall Plan after the victory, and
Hmm.
what made America the biggest player, and it gave it so many advantages on the world stage.
Hmm.
And now, if we examine like the past few decades of realpolitik, it hasn't brought us anything positive. America's lost, I would say, lost its position. Maybe not definitely, but at least it's being challenged,
Yes.
and we have the biggest war on our hands since the Second World War.
Hmm.
So for me, it's clear that what policies work and what policies don't work.
Hmm.
It's just that some politicians are willing to use this narrative and this realpolitik story for their own political goals,
Yes.
and that's really disappointing because
It's disappointing.
the that it has a price of human lives, of human suffering.
Yes, I mean, I would even say that Crimea was almost like a consequence of the realpolitik. It was they saw how weak they are in their belief, and they took advantage of it. They took Crimea, and the funny thing is actually Russia and China. They are both authoritarian, but they're actually ideologically driven countries. They're both driven by China wants power first. They will sacrifice the economy to retain power. Same with Russia. They are ideologically driven, and this is why they will do what it takes to make something happen in their direction.
Yeah,
And
they don't engage in realpolitik. They are very ferociously pursuing their own ideological interests first
absolutely,
and foremost.
yeah. And I think this is part of the reason why it's been easy to play Western countries these last few years because we have forgotten about the ideology that brought us here.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is that these authoritarian regimes, like China, like Russia, like Iran, they tend to corrupt our international
Hmm.
institutions,
Yes.
which they take part of, and this continuation of realpolitics only gives them more abilities to do so.
Yeah.
If you take like Russia is the prime example of this, that they've managed to abuse and corrupt almost all of the international institutions they are taking
Hmm.
part of, like beginning from the UN, where they use their veto to, yeah,
It's, you know what, it's kind of like it's like doing business with someone who is stealing from you, but you still do business with them because you're still making a net profit, but you're allowing them to steal from you. And we've seen this, like Germany with Russia, they had this. They now admit it was a bad idea, but they were conducting business with Russia, assuming that by doing business, Russia will become democratic. In the end,
yeah,
what it like they
yeah,
it didn't happen. America tried it with China, after they opened up China with Nixon, didn't happen.
yeah.
And
But I can somewhere understand the German love of realpolitik, and
mhm,
they invented the thing, and it realpolitik has been credited the reunification of the German states.
mhm,
But I don't think you can implement the same principles on a global scale.
no,
The unification of German states could have been facilitated by realpolitik because they were basically on the same page.
mhm,
They had only these mercantile issues that they had to solve amongst themselves.
mhm,
But culturally and like in their societal development, they were pretty much on the same page already. So
mhm.
that in that case, realpolitik can work. But when you are ideologically opposed, that you're
No,
just making your ideological enemy stronger by
you,
trading with
you
them.
you can't negotiate with someone dishonest, and that's really what we're into right now, this past
Exactly.
decade.
And I wouldn't I wouldn't advocate for stopping all the trade. It's just
Yes,
uh, it has to be conducted fair
yes.
and with our values and principles in the background of the mind.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Completely agree.
I'm glad we agree on that point, and I hope more people can see this point, because it's so simple and so obvious for me.
It's
But
it actually is so simple, and I guess, like, we just kept on going on in examples, and like the moment, like, you understand about realism, and the moment you, I guess, make the example in something that people can digest, like, you can't trust a neighbor that steals from you. You can't do that. You can't do business with someone steals from, like, like, if you look at Germany and Russia, you look at China, America, like, I mean, you can't look at a world cost benefit, and it really is, just about people understanding this, and this, simple concept, being aware of it, because a lot of people just aren't aware, and the moment you are, it's like it just makes sense.
yeah, but it's hard to bring this simple truths to people, because there are so many narratives that you have to combat
It's
to to get through that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's very understandable seeing
Mhm.
what resources are pumped into media outlets to spread this false narratives and
Mhm.
and to basically conduct information warfare.
Is that the next topic we're going to, information warfare?
I think so. That's where I would like to go.
Okay.
When I've experienced this propaganda on myself when I
Yeah.
was when I was younger, and in the French Foreign Legion. I used to tune into Russia Today channels and Russia One channel, just because the TV opportunities were very scarce, and these channels were always part of the channel packages in European cable
Mhm.
networks. So I could tune into them from basically any TV. And there were, needless to say, there were no Ukrainian or independent Russophile channels available.
Mhm.
Only these two states propaganda channels, as I now realize. And Uh, well, tuning into those channels, like for me, it provided a sense of nostalgia, like watching news how I used to watch them when I was a kid, and like unwillingly I absorbed all the skewed perspectives that were brought there. And for me, the turning point was during the events of 2014. I in beginning of the year I was still in France, and I've seen reports from my hometown, from Ternopil, and the Russia state media reported neo-Nazi marches and
Mhm.
like public, almost public executions of Russia speakers, and horrific scenes. And that led me to do a reality checks with my friends and family in town, and they assured me that nothing of sorts was going on. And this experience led me to question news sources, to like and realize the extent of propaganda.
Mhm.
And I had to really critically rethink my worldview at that point. Like now, upon reflection in retrospect, I recognize that the content was deliberately like sowing doubt,
Mhm.
pushing conspiracy theories, and presenting alternative facts. While I didn't buy into the conspiracy theories, it still introduced an an ambiguity to my thinking,
Yes.
and that's exactly what those channels are going for:
Yeah.
sowing doubt, sowing
Yes.
ambiguity to this simple and straightforward narratives.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. I mean, it happens everywhere. I mean, yeah. I mean, in the West, they've done it so well with the right wing propaganda. Like in Canada, for example, that when Zelensky came to Toronto, there were Canadians protesting and like angry. Like Canadians right now are quite upset with our prime minister, but they were like calling Zelensky like a thief. Like they think that the money just goes to buying yachts or something stupid, but in reality, most of this money stays inside. Like America stays in Canada. Like and like the aid usually comes in items. Like if we give a tank, right? That's a I don't know $100 million item, 80 million. I'm not sure, but we're not giving cash. We're giving an item. When America buys artillery rounds, they spend the money in America to make the rounds to send to Ukraine. It's not cash.
Yeah,
There is some cash
so
involved,
the
but
aid packages basically stay in the economy that provides them.
exactly.
That,
And all it takes is like you throw in the word corruption and people start they don't think critically about it and they start getting this idea and it's so and that seed of doubt is all it takes to shift the whole narrative.
yeah, there. President Zelensky once said in a reaction that we have corruption in Ukraine, but it doesn't concern Western money, and he has been misunderstood, or
Hmm.
this statement has been misunderstood, uh, saying like, well, what it doesn't matter what money gets stolen. If it gets stolen, it gets stolen. And there is a huge problem of corruption in Ukraine, and
Hmm.
we are seriously combating it. But it, as our president said, it has nothing to do with the aid we receive from the
Hmm.
West, because that is any monetary aid that comes directly to the budget is strictly accounted for as any budgeted funds. But
Hmm.
most of the aid comes in a form of military aid, and those are just, as you said, items that would have been disposed of soon. So it actually makes more economic sense to send them to Ukraine
Yeah, absolutely. It
and
saves money.
yeah, and rearm your own armed forces with production of your own industry, than to just destroy them.
Yeah, there's definitely a few points I want to touch on, but I mean, for our listeners who might not be aware, like, I mean, every single explosive device has an expiry date. Like, I mean, even if it's still good, you got to get rid of it at some point. It's getting old. It costs a lot of money to blow up like a missile, and then you got to make a new missile. In this case, you give it to Ukraine, they use it to lower the need for defense because Russia is one of the main adversaries. You weaken them, and then you spend the money in America, you build another missile that's brand new, and you keep it for America. I mean, it's the best deal. Like, I've never seen that such an amazing deal given to America in the last like 50 years.
Yeah, but the American public has still a bitter pill that to swallow from Afghanistan, and that's why I think they are very hesitant
Yes.
helping
Yeah.
Ukraine.
And
But
I think
it's
there
yeah.
sorry, I think another issue too is because Ukrainians actually have such a poor English skill. You have amazing English. I want to be clear
Well,
for
thank you. I'm still working on it because it's very rusty right now. I haven't used the language
but
in a long while.
you can speak conversationally, which is better than like 95% of Ukrainians out there. And because there's also a massive cultural gap, how do we help Americans or Westerners understand how does Ukraine work? How does the corruption work? How is it kept honest? There's so much difficulty in the communication in general. Like, for example, does the Ukrainian government understand like all the conflicts or all the things that the Republican congressmen are going through? They don't know. Maybe, I'm not sure. And does the Republican congressman, for example, understand the nature of Ukraine? They don't. They have very little. I mean, even for me, like when I came to Ukraine, I don't know what the corruption is. I don't know what it looks like because it is corruption in Eastern Europe. There's different systems, different accounting, different bureaucracy, and different legal system. So these kind of things, it makes it easy to sow that doubt because when for example, I don't know, John Smith doesn't understand what corruption looks like in Ukraine. He just thinks, they're buying yachts,
Yeah, they're
right?
just stealing money and buying yachts. Yeah,
It's a little bit more complicated in digital corruption, but also there's a lot of honesty too.
yeah. There is so much sacrifice on human level on like the donations for drones for the armed forces, and like everybody is working towards the war effort. There are some rotten apples that can't change their ways that they are used to dealing in, but in general there is a
There's a lot of
there is a
integrity in
whole
Ukraine.
yeah there is a lot of integrity, that's for sure, and there have been decisions made and laws passed to combat the corruption, and we are Ukrainian society in general is very thankful for our Western partners to bring this up, because that the corruption in this country is first and foremost our problem.
Mm-hmm.
Is we feel it on our skin daily, like
Yeah.
and we are working very hard to combat this problem.
Yeah, and like I just want to say, like, when I'm in Ukraine, like I am so I feel so hopeful for the country because of the younger generation. Like you yourself are like in your 30s, but um also like the people that are like 20s and like younger, like with every generation, because I guess like people have to remember that Soviet Union collapsed in 91. What happened after Soviet Union collapse? Chaos,
Yeah,
right? Like it's
huge.
there's like laws don't really work, institutions don't work, so the corruption came from this chaos, and as each generation matures, they are successfully less and less generation less corrupt.
Well, I would correct you here. Corruption hasn't did not rise from the
Okay.
chaos of the early 90s. It was created in Soviet time and even before that.
Hmm.
like there was this running joke from Soviet time that we pretend to go to work, or we pretend to work, and the government pretends to pay us. But because that was really the realistic situation on the ground.
Mhm.
Like people, there is this Russian expression, "going to work," which means like working. But it's literally going to work. It's not like doing work. It's just
Uh,
going to work, just being present there.
mhm.
That that's what you would say if you would say, if you would like do any work. You say, "I'm going to work," meaning I'll be present, not I'll
Mhm.
do anything actually. And on the second part of the expression, they pretended to pay us. Well, yeah, there were rubles paid, a lot of rubles if you would convert them to dollars, but you couldn't convert them to dollars, and you couldn't buy anything for them. So like
Mm.
the population pretended to work, and the government pretended to pay them, and that's where all the corruption came from. Because whenever you wanted to get something for yourself, you had to
Mhm.
to contact with a corrupt official, or well, everybody was an official because everybody was working for the state. So you had to find your way. There was like this whole barter system set up where whenever you visited a doctor, you had to bring him a chocolate or something
Mhm.
else that was difficult to find, and that was the only way to get things done. So imagine like 70 years of this of this system that has like rooted itself
Mhm.
into all layers of the society, and then the chaos of the 90s, which was extreme. People don't realize how big the chaos was. I mean, there was nobody in the country that understood how capitalist system supposed to work.
Mhm.
Like only like low level traders that have existed could have some grasp of how the system works in general. But when Ukraine became independent, we had difficulties to find somebody to head the national bank, because there was no one with enough economic understanding.
Mhm.
It was a huge problem, because there was no real economic education in the Soviet Union. Like they didn't participate in capitalist economy, so they
Mhm.
didn't study it. It was all Marxist Leninism economy, which
Yeah.
we know how that works.
Yeah. My partner's dad, he sold jeans and went to jail for that. Because one, I mean, they're jeans, contraband, but
Right.
also like it's a violation of communism in a way,
Yeah.
to be selling that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess like what I want to add from this, there's two beautiful things I think that came out of this. Is that one? I mean, Ukraine. Like first, I hate bureaucracy, but the bureaucratic procedures for a lot of stuff is so tight that it makes it very difficult to steal. You have to be very creative, and I think like please correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're dealing when the government is dealing with foreign money, when you're dealing with items like ammunition, all that, there's a paper trail for every single step of the way, and extremely tight, and it's all computerized. So it's very hard for that kind of stuff to get stolen. But what I guess maybe you can help correct me in this too. Is like what kind of theft could happen is like like you're buying, I don't know, jackets, and you buy it from your friend Sergey, who might like have it a little bit more expensive. So, or you might not be doing the proper check for different vendors, and that is also corruption too.
Yeah.
And
That's
but
that's
that's
basically the only form of corruption that could be possible with systems in place. Is like insider dealing or insider trading, and there have been and even those kind of schemes, they come out because everything is documented.
it's documented.
Yeah, and it's in public access.
Yeah,
So
and
like we had this scandal a year ago with the purchase of winter jackets, and journalists examined the contracts, and they figured out that the weight of the jacket is not as a winter jacket should weigh. It's clearly a lighter spring or even a summer jacket. So and the price that was paid was like for a winter jacket, and it was stated that it was a winter jacket, but just the weight of the item showed that it couldn't be a winter jacket. And it came to public attention. There was an investigation. People got fired. I guess there are still. I don't know what the situation right now is, but it had resonance in the society, and our like investigative. Help me with the word here. Investigative
like
bureau, yeah, it has conducted its investigation into it. I don't know what the state of the investigation is right now, but they're working on it.
Yeah, and I guess I want to say like there's definitely corruption in Ukraine, but the country is trying very hard to combat it. And I think a lot of foreigners also they think about like humanitarian aid theft, and I just want to state on this. Part of the reason why humanitarian aid was stolen so much is because it came into the country untracked, which I mean, there's no way around it.
For sure.
But I mean, like, if you bring 100 night vision, no one tracks it. It could very well disappear. Not to say that this is acceptable, but for the large items that countries donate, it's they're very visible to track.
Yeah, they are very visible to track, and as to the humanitarian aid that has been stolen, like in the first days, myself, I brought a lot of humanitarian help to the West, like to the front line, to our soldiers, like food, munition, and just warm clothes and stuff like that. But like in the first month, we didn't do any paperwork.
Yes.
So if you would track the things I brought to our guys, you would consider them stolen because there is no paperwork. But they weren't stolen. They went to people who need them the most. But just no paper trail because there was no time or possibility for that.
It's a complicated. I mean, war is complicated. It's just
and that people have to realize that as well.
Yeah.
And well, Ukrainian society realized that we need to combat this corruption and win over corruption before we can win this war. We can't go back to business as usual as pre-war, not even after our victory, because how we conducted our business and the country we have created pre-war is what brought us to this war. If we would be stronger, if we had a stronger position on world political scale, Russia wouldn't invade us. It's exactly because they thought that we are very weak, very corrupt, that it would be easy to occupy us. And I would argue that we might have weak government, or we had weak government. They stepped up. Our president stepped up big time. But they seriously underestimated the Ukrainian people and their will to live in a free and democratic society.
Absolutely.
It's something that's running through our veins, basically. That's something that is nested in our history.
Yeah.
This conflict isn't from February 24th last year. This has been going on for ages.
Yes.
Because there is just a different view on how the society should work.
Yeah. I mean, Ukraine is, I mean, a lot of people don't understand, but Ukraine is a large country with a lot of different parts of culture. Like, I mean, from the West, Ternopil, there was Austro-Hungarian Empire. There were, there was parts of like Southwest were part of Romania at some point. I mean, and there
Yeah.
was also like a lot of history of like a lot of mercantile class in the West. And there was a time when Ukraine was actually independent before it got absorbed in the Soviet Union. And there's been a first, like a desire for independence, desire for I guess commerce, for democracy for some time. And absolutely, the world is, as I mean, Russia especially has underestimated the resolve of Ukrainian people and the ideological strength that they have.
If we would look on the historical differences between Russia and Ukraine, we have talked about this before with you. We have a very different view as to how the society should be governed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very clear if you follow the history of the two countries, how it came to be.
Mm-hmm.
Russia traces its origins, or the current Russia traces its origins from the Muscovite state,
Mm-hmm.
which was from its inceptions subjugated to the Golden Horde, to the Mongols. So the princes of Muscovy went to the Golden Horde to get their permission to rule, and they were in contest amongst each other as to who could provide the most taxes contributions to the Mongols. That whoever could contribute more taxes got the right to rule, and that created a dynamic between the populace and the ruling class of always the populace was always subjugated by the ruling class, because
Extraction.
yeah, the basic idea was extraction. You're absolutely right. As opposed to Ukraine, that had more European style development,
Yes.
and it was part of major European like countries and major European historical events.
Yeah.
Ukrainians have participated in that, and that has built a completely different state to the Russian one.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
although Russia tries to claim its origins from the Kievan Rus, but if we look at this statement with a bit of a bit
Like
of sorry,
like critical, like a historical context.
yeah, critical historical context, we see it doesn't hold up, and
Yeah,
there are so many proofs for this.
absolutely. I guess. By the way, when I'm like talking about Ukrainian culture or history, please interrupt me if I'm getting anything wrong, because I'm.
Oh no, yeah, as like you're very well educated on the topic. So,
Okay. I just don't want to say anything completely ignorant. So please feel free to interrupt. But I mean, just to add to that, like um, Moscow. I mean, yes, Russia came. The Muscovy state came from Kievan Rus, and I guess what a lot of people don't recognize is that when the Mongols came and sacked Kievan Rus, they cut off in many ways the link of culture between um, European culture and Russia, because that's where it came from. I mean, that was a bridge. So for a long time, Russia's developed this extractive culture, like you were saying, and that is the model they still have. They have a king who rules above everyone, the oligarchs, and then the oligarchs extract, they give to the king. Whereas, I mean, like even to expand on this further, when the Black Death came to Europe, it's in many ways you can argue that the Black Death brought the not the mercantile, the working class, because there was a
yeah, the
shortage of
peasants.
labor. There was peasants could no longer just be given a place to sleep and food. They had to be given money to work. Whereas when the Black Death came into Russia, it was the opposite. They just oppressed harder and they retained this power. So there was a large cultural divide. And Ukraine was part of these Western empires at different parts of time. And Ukraine was, it is developed separately. Is always, I mean, I don't want to say it's completely separate. I mean, what do I want to say? What I want to say that Russian culture is
There
dramatically
are
different.
cultural links, but between Russia and Ukraine, how well we are neighbors. How can there not be? But the core is very different.
The
Like
core is different. And so it's important to recognize Ukraine is a separate thing from Russia, and looking at this historical context and in the cultural upbringing and how these countries came to be.
yeah, like that is exactly very important. And in my view, people in the West are trying beginning to understand this. It's slowly getting through that there is a difference between Ukrainians, and Russians. But another like another viewpoint of this, or another thing you have to consider when talking to this, is Russian citizens in Russia are still under this system
Absolutely.
of subjugation. And I went on chat roulette a few times. I don't know if you know what that is. That's
Yes,
where
yes,
you
yes.
can chat with random people. And obviously, I selected the Russian region to see how much support there is from the populace for this war. And I was amazed. It's like 90% are rigorously for, and the arguments they bring forward are just they completely made up, and they're just repeating very bad propaganda narratives that like don't make any sense. Like I'll give you an example. Like the biggest argument is like, but you guys were bombing Donbass for 8 years, and that's why Russia had to intervene. Like Ukraine has brought so many petitions to the UN for cease of fire, for peacekeeping troops, and has always been blocked by Russian veto. And now they try to push the narrative that we have been bombing Donbass for 8 years.
Yeah, like it's really intellectual dishonesty. And
It's at its most basic level, it's like so bluntly dishonest that
yeah, and I guess for a lot of people, the view begins with Russia is right. Like we are right. This is meant to be. And so when you begin with the standpoint of we cannot do anything wrong, then of course it will be dishonest. And I think
yeah that's but it's something that's like pumped into their heads by the propaganda machine.
yeah,
And
like
it's
I mean,
for me it's so strange to see so many people who doesn't who they don't have the skill to use their thinking critically.
yeah, I mean, I think Russia and China is quite similar in this respect. There's a lot. I see this a lot in China, where I mean, like, the state tells you what to believe, and they craft it so cleverly. I mean, my father is, he is in Canada, but he is given so much propaganda every single day, by the Chinese government, and I think that this is specifically targeted towards Chinese population in Western countries.
Yeah. And your
And
father is from Hong Kong, right?
my father's from Hong Kong. Hong Kong. He's lived in Canada since he was 18 years old, so his
Wow.
entire adult life. But still, he is bombarded by propaganda, and I can see the same thing where he will repeat the lines. He doesn't question it, and they have crafted the whole world around it. They have crafted like the photoshopped images. They will
Mhm.
tell him the arguments. They say crazy things too, just like they do with Russian media. Like they say like China is more democratic. China is real democracy because we have more people voting or something, stupid. Or like China has always had the right to rule um, the South China Sea, the Nine Dash Line. But it's because the
Mm.
world view begins with China is right. China can never be wrong. China's always right. Respect the government, that there will all, even if there is like some argument against something, there's always, okay, but what about this? And what about that? And what about that? So they're never thinking about it critically. They're always just looking for a way to fight and a way to make their own worldview right.
Yeah, but in first months of the war, I had this hope that when facts will come out, this whole made-up narrative it will crumble.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Facts do come out, like straightforward. Like for example, Igor Girkin or Stilkov, as he also known. You probably know this
Mm-hmm.
character. He was the one who initiated everything in 2014, first in Crimea and then in
Mm-hmm.
Donbass. He gave an interview where he basically admitted to everything, how it went down in 2014. But he fired the first round that without his uh, his involvement and there wouldn't be a conflict. There wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
a Donetsk People Republic or a Luhansk People Republic, and he talked about everything bluntly, and still the like narrative didn't change.
Yeah.
It's like,
Because it's not about facts. I mean, I think this goes way back to the realpolitik conversation.
yeah,
Because
it
if
does.
if people want to look at the world strictly ideologically, the facts don't matter, right? I'm not saying ideologies are bad, but when you're fighting against or arguing or whatever with someone who is ideologically opposed with you, you can't have a conversation in good faith. I'm sure Western viewers can relate with like far right people, far left people. You can't have a good faith conversation. That conversation with critical thought and like arguments only exists when both parties want to do it.
Yeah, but as like, how do we bridge this gap? How do we find a common ground to discuss things? Because sooner or later we are all stuck here together on this little blue ball, and sooner or later we are forced to cooperate, to work
Yeah.
together, because resources aren't, they are scarce. We have to share them. We have to find some common ground.
Yeah, I mean there I wish there was an easy way. I mean, I feel like someone would have come to it if there was. I think the only way to even combat this is people need just to be more conscious, meaning they're more reflective, they're more aware. The fact that we can have a conversation about this and look at it critically, I mean that means something. But not a lot of people will take that conscious effort to think of like, okay, who's behind this, right? Or like, what are my beliefs and am I wrong? What like I it takes a lot of courage to say to yourself like, okay, I don't know,
Yeah,
I'm going to go find out, right? And I'm going to challenge all of this. And like what does that require? It takes a lot of awareness. So then that's not something easy to achieve actually.
yeah, I understand. But for me personally, having this experience that I had, it kind of frightens me that we have almost 1.5 or 2 billion people in this world that are just indoctrinated, that don't think from themselves.
Yeah, like I mean, what I believe is that I think we actually do need to be ideological in a way, but we have to actually stand by it. And what does that ideology look like? It can't be something where it's like, we're right and you're the enemy. It can't
Yeah,
be
no.
like we're gonna take over. It has to be a ideology that is for the betterment of humanity. An ideology like, for example, like we like ideology of democracy, ideology of peace, ideology of betterment of humanity.
Yeah, yes, and I thought we were somewhere on this path, but now in the 24th century, it turns out that one country can invade another just to grab some land.
Yeah, absolutely. And but like it really feels like this is the final breaths of this last ideology, where it's now China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, a few other small countries. But as
Like,
people become, oh sorry,
yeah, you mean like the authoritarian regimes
uh,
against the
yes,
world?
this is definitely an authoritarian versus democratic, liberal democratic world kind of battle where the liberal democratic countries have in some ways, in many ways, have forgotten their ideology in exchange for the economic cost and benefit. But this is really, there aren't that many more authoritarian countries out there. They're not growing in number. They are getting weaker. This is like their final stand.
Yeah,
And I think the way to combat authoritarianism is to become more, not just educated, but to become more aware. And I think with every generation, this becomes possible where people are, when you have money, you have less things, you have more time to think. And when you have more time to think, you start to realize certain things like, should I be unkind? Should I steal? Should I be violent? And the more reasons, like, I mean, when you're poor, you might think of these things, but when you have time to think and sit with it, and people start to realize, like, oh no, it's actually terrible to inflict harm to someone else. And so I think that as our civilization is advancing and we become more wealthy, more educated, more prosperous, people will wake up to it. And I really hope that this is one of the last few, maybe hopefully the last century of this kind of where countries can be ruled by this mentality.
yeah, I hope so. I sincerely do hope so that it's like the last hooray for authoritarian regimes. But still, I'm worried. I'm really worried because yeah, we can do a lot
Hmm.
with education, with pushing the right narratives, but most of the people just who are well off, they don't really care. They are happy living their comfortable lives, and then
Hmm.
they don't really care. On the other hand, we have these authoritarian regimes that are actively preparing, that are actively brainwashing their people, and you could do a lot with such a large biomass.
Hmm.
And I don't think that world is taking it serious enough.
Yes, I mean, you know, um, I mean, this is such a complicated topic, man. To be honest, this is a
It
very
is. It is.
complicated topic. From just my view, I think that there's definitely a scale of progression where it's like, I would say it's from people who are authoritarian minded, meaning like people who will like I'm gonna take from you. It's about me. I'm in control. The people who are, what I would consider in the realpolitik world, people who are like they're looking cost benefits, but they're not necessarily, like they're not necessarily, may not harm you outright, but they're looking for their best interest. And then there are the next level are people who are I guess you could positively ideologically minded. And I think it's important to express to the world that, you know, these, we can't just stand idly by anymore as a species. We have to stand for something greater if we care about our future. If we care about our civilization, our species, because not only do we face threats from countries that want to wage war, we face our own climate threat.
Yeah.
The world is heating up. Like Antarctica this past, like, I don't know, summer or something was like 50 degrees Celsius warmer than normal. We're facing a real threat. And the sooner we can move on past these ideological threats of authoritarianism, the sooner we can move on to the next real threat to our civilization. And I guess I'm not really saying anything to like move that needle, but it's like I guess what I'm saying is like, man, we have to be really aware of this because it matters.
We are. Let's focus a bit our attention back to Ukraine, where
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
global ideologic war has found its expression on the battlefield. What do you think is what do you think will it take for Ukraine to be victorious? What changes does Ukraine has to make to its society, to its maybe military strategy on the ground? What has to change for us to be able to win this war?
Well, I mean, I'm not a tactician. But I like to think that like, I honestly believe that Ukrainian military is doing the best they can. Like, you can't all of a sudden make the military 50 years more experienced. That takes
Oh,
time.
believe me, the military is doing way more than was supposed to be able to do. And
Absolutely. We have to.
I think most people don't realize that, like, for the first 6 to 8 months of fighting, there was no Western aid except for javelins
Yeah.
and loves.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to also remember that Ukraine's military kind of was born in 2014. It
Yeah,
was
because since it's Ukraine's independence up to 2014, the army was being like demolished basically. Because and I had honestly pre 2014 I had the same sentiment. I remember myself saying Ukraine doesn't need an army. Who will we ever fight? Russia,
Mhm.
Poland? They're like brothers to us. Well, there can't be a war, but that's exactly what our Russian brothers wanted us to think.
Yeah, and so
And
like I
they
mean like on this note, like like what can Ukraine be doing more? I mean, I think Ukraine's doing everything they can. Like to ask more of that is, I guess you can, but it's not going to be what changes it. I think what changes the war is military aid from the West. The West has been really, they've been like, why not longer? Why did the attack of missiles take so long to get here? Like why? There's no, because they're afraid of attacking Russia. Why did HIMARS take so long? Why did F-16s take so long?
Yeah,
I
because the Russian bluff basically to use nuclear weapons paid off.
It paid off. It paid off. And like
Yeah,
I think what really will take is actually this conversation on realism. Because for a lot of people, especially you can, if you see the White House and the way they navigate, it's very clear that this is an issue where they're always concerned about, don't use this on Russia, don't use this on Russia. They're afraid of, like I heard stories. It was public. There was stories of U.S. intelligence trying to call off the naval strike on on with these naval drones when they first came. There was, and it's this fear, right, that I think needs to be overcome. Where it's like, will America, will Germany, these Western countries continue to fall under this mentality of realism where Ukraine is part of Russian sphere of influence, where it's about cost benefits, or will they move towards an ideological fight? Because if, for example, if a politician in America looks at it from a realist view, of course they're going to go for stalemate, because what happens if Ukraine wins? I mean, Russia might retaliate with a nuclear missile. And so that's just a consequence. But if we wake up to this and start realizing that we can't just live on cost benefits. We have to stand for something. America has to stand for something. America's found on. We have to stand for it. Then there is a chance, because then we'll realize that we have to stand by our ideological beliefs. And so what does that mean? That means that we have to ensure that Ukraine remains a free country. We have to remain that authoritarianism doesn't win. And what is it? How does that manifest? We have to give way more weapons. We have to give the weapons Ukraine needs to achieve victory.
yeah. I would even add to that, well, if Russia would be victorious in Ukraine, it would be disaster for whole of Europe.
Absolutely.
because, well, it won't stop there. It will continue expanding and finding strategic barriers where it can defend itself. It's
Yeah.
from like military strategic point of view, Russia is very difficult to defend, and that's why they have chosen the strategy to push out, to expand
Hmm.
instead of protecting their lands, because it's just impossible to protect such a vast
Hmm.
landmass. So they won't stop at Ukraine,
They
and
won't.
Putin has made it clear that he does not recognize the right to exist of Ukraine.
Yeah, and we should remember that we cannot like this war has given permission to authoritarians in a way, like even Venezuela, like going after their neighbor,
Amazing.
right? Like it's crazy. So if authoritarianism isn't stopped, what does it tell the rest of the countries in the world? It says that the West is weak and they can go invade. And
Yeah, it's the rule of the strongest, and where will that bring us?
yeah,
I
very
think
it'll be
that,
very costly.
yeah, I would even argue that if Ukraine would lose, it would bring us closer to a nuclear war than if Ukraine would win. If you
Absolutely.
really think about it logically, because if Ukraine loses, all hell breaks loose,
Hmm.
and uh, we can already see that prolongation of this conflict has ripple effects on the global scale, on a global
Yes.
scale, and like exactly Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro would not dream of even voicing such a move if it hadn't been for Crimean president, for the war in Ukraine now, where we see that the West doesn't really take the position to end it.
No. Yeah. It's I mean, like what comes after Ukraine, right? Then there's Moldova. Moldova's the first one that goes,
Well,
right?
Moldova is basically like included with Ukraine.
Yeah, and then it'll be Kazakhstan and it'll be Georgia. I mean, it's the war has really shown that like Russia's military will fight and they can probably beat many NATO countries. Like I mean, like what is like Germany? Like you have like 100 tanks. I don't know how many they have, but it's not enough. And
Oh,
it's
that they have a lot, but they have no combat experience. And
no,
let's
yeah,
not forget that Russian army 1.5 year ago and Russian army now are not same. They learned a lot as well,
yes, they've grown
and
competent.
yeah, they have become much more competent. And this Ukrainian media tends to paint them as like incompetent buffoons, but I'm really against that, because if they would be so incompetent, we would already have won, but they're not. They have
Hmm.
made mistakes. They were very ill prepared, but we can't call them incompetent. Yeah,
No.
their method of combat is sometimes very barbaric, like with the just human waves of human assault waves. That's very barbaric. It was barbaric by the standards of World War One, not to speak of 21st century. But still, it's a very very formidable opponent.
Hmm.
And if this authoritarian regimes, this excess of evil, would really join forces and really unite, it could be a
It's a problem.
terrible outcome. Like
Yeah, it's
that
it.
that war would be horrific.
Yeah, it starts with small little bits of acts, like localized conflict. Like we see it in like Chad and where all these like Wagner folks have been, supporting dictators. Venezuela, it could be China, it could be like I don't know, it could be Burma.
Yeah,
It could be it's all these little countries where it'll start. It might not be an invasion of America, but it will cause an issue in the world situation.
Yeah, and America has to make its mind up. Does it want to like close off and be this closed quite prosperity, I guess, nation, or if it wants to maintain its global superpower basically, and bring the ideas of liberty, democracy, and rule of law to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, it makes the world a far better and more comfortable place for all of us.
Yes.
What's has always been amazing to me is how the Ukrainian conflict mirrors the history of Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
When like Hitler annexed part of Czechoslovakia,
Mm-hmm.
and the West went along with it. Putin did the same with Crimea. The West went along with it. Like after a brief pause, after regrouping, well, Hitler continued. So did Putin, and like it repeats itself like one to one. Even the manner of bringing speeches could be can be compared, and no lessons have been learned.
Mm-hmm.
That's just amazing. I don't understand this.
Yeah. I mean, I know the logical reasons for like, but like I agree with you. It's disappointing. It's very disappointing, to say the least.
But I suggest we change the topic a bit, and
Yeah, okay,
and,
because I feel we have gone really deep down this rabbit hole, haven't we?
yeah, we did. We did. Well, let's talk about how you view the world after Ukrainian victory.
Okay.
What do you think will happen for Ukraine, and what will that affect? How would that affect the rest of the world?
So this is really the real reason why I've done so much work in Ukraine, and my dream is actually that I think that the Ukraine is a front line against authoritarianism in the world. You know, against, you know, like we mentioned, China, Russia, sorry, not Saudi Arabia, Iran. It is a front line where the actions in Ukraine will give a sign to the rest of that world. So, what does a Ukrainian victory mean? Ukrainian victory means a defeat of authoritarianism. It means that the world, like for example, if Russia was to outright collapse, it means that China doesn't have a major ideological partner to work with. They cannot be alone in this. It will mean significant changes. We don't know what that looks like, but it means that the authoritarian world powers lose their power. And what does that leave the world? Well, I think that what Ukraine has been showing is the power of countries to stand by what they believe in. We've seen this right now in Poland. We see this in like Czech Republic. We see this in like Latvia. These small countries who have experienced communism, and they know what's on the line. So they will go against, you know, the cost benefits to support what they believe in ideologically. Same with Lithuania. Lithuania is one of the first countries that stood up against China in support of Taiwan. So what do I think comes after this conflict? I think that there will be a rise of it gives inspiration to the ideological world of liberal democracy. And I think if authoritarian collapses, it leaves us with the next major ideological conflict. Before we had imperialism, nationalism, we had fascism, you know, and all this stuff, communism versus capitalism in the Cold War. I think what comes after authoritarianism versus liberal democratic ideology is an ideological conflict between what is best for my, you know, what is the cost benefit, what's best for myself versus what is better for the whole. And I think the sooner we move on to that, the sooner we can advance our our species to surviving the next major crisis, which is going to be in our environment. So, like for a lot of ways, Ukraine, I think, matters to the whole world. It matters for the development of the human species. So we have to stand up and we have to get past this. Ukraine has to win.
I couldn't agree more, and I would even argue that just by standing up to this tyranny, Ukraine has done so much for the liberal democratic values all around the world, because the West was already ready to capitulate.
Yes.
They were ready to let Russia have Ukraine. Well, it's amazing to realize this now, but like prior to the invasion, Joseph Biden, the president of the United States, offered Zelensky evacuation to the states.
Yes.
I mean, it's
You,
amazing to look back and realize how much we have done already.
yeah, Ukraine has inspired the world. It truly has inspired the world to stand for something. That like this little country can stand against the second most powerful country in the world, and it's given so much hope, so much courage, so much belief in this worldview. And so, like I don't know any other time in human history. Well, I mean, there you could look at World War II as another example, but like it matters. It truly does.
Yeah, and I want people to understand that the first 6 months of the war, it was purely this will against a huge military machine, and we prevailed just by sheer enthusiasm and willingness to take risk, to take sacrifice.
Everybody took part in it. Everybody took part. Like everyone was driving. Everyone was like doing whatever they can at that moment because like I guess in this way, like I really applaud Zelensky for that moment when he said, "I don't need a ride, I need ammunition,"
Yeah,
because I don't know like what you think about this, but if he gave up, I don't know how the rest of the country would have held it together. And when he held it together, everyone was like, he's still in, we're in. And the world was like, okay, he's in, we're in. So, I mean, it's I hope people don't forget the courage and they don't forget like, what this battle really means
yeah.
for
Well, it
everyone.
means on the global scale. It's like you've lived in Ukraine. You've seen the country. You talk to people. You know how it works. What do you envision for the people of Ukraine, for the Ukraine as a country after the victory? Where will victory bring us?
Yeah. Well, like, hmm, I, I don't want to talk about the economics of it, but I do want to say that I really do hope that Ukraine continues to hold this banner of democracy. At some point, America held this for a very long time, but the banner of democracy, of freedom, of the right to like take control of your own life, to be free and independent. And I hope that Ukraine, I really do think that they will, though. I mean, the Ukrainian people will, where they will. This kind of conflict, it stays in your memory, and it stays as something that people believe in. And I hope that Ukraine becomes this banner. They might, I don't think Ukraine will become the most wealthy country, but I hope ideologically that Ukraine can become powerful in that respect. And I think this is where I think Western nations have forgotten this. They think that power is just money, but I think power is ideology right now, and it shows right now in countries like Poland and in Central Europe where they are really showing that they have power, they have weight. And so I hope Ukraine can carry this banner forward for humanity.
I I agree. I share your hopes, but the economics part of the story is also very important, especially for people on the ground here who have to endure hardships. However you turn it, everybody had to sacrifice something, and so people are living with the hope of brighter future.
Yeah.
I
So do
think
you want to talk about the economics of it?
I would like to talk about economics of it.
Okay.
Do you think there will be investments for post war reconstruction?
Yes, but only post-war.
Yeah.
Sorry, not only post-war, but very likely. And I guess the first reason is because no foreign business wants to invest into Ukraine, even if they can get insured and get their stuff blown up. It's a businesses hate risk, countries hate risks. They don't want to deal with that kind of risk. But here's what I want to say: is that Ukraine has some of the most fertile soil, the most fertile soil in the world.
Yeah.
Ukraine also has probably the lowest cost of labor in all of Europe. I think the minimum wage is $200 a month, which is insanely low. Ukrainian people are also very hardworking and they're very educated. Ukraine will be entering the European Union soon. Ukraine has a lot of potential to be producing a lot of goods, they have a lot of natural resources. There's a lot of educated people. So of course there is a massive potential as Ukraine enters the European Union to become the factory, the farm. It can be where there's a lot of natural resource like natural gas. There is oil, in the Black Sea. It will take time, but I mean, like not only that, there are a lot of there's so many people inspired by Ukraine that want to visit Ukraine after the war, that want to invest into Ukraine after the war, because there's a sense of like, yes, we want to help this country. And I guess the examples that I will share is like, look at Japan post World War II, look at Korea, look at Taiwan. These countries, look at Germany, look at Italy.
Germany. Yeah.
They were all
Exactly.
destroyed and they were all rebuilt.
Exactly.
And so, yes, I mean, it's tough during the war, but there is so much potential. A country is really built on, like, a country's development is really dependent on the quality of the government. And the Ukrainian government is really improving. Ukraine has all the natural components necessary to become wealthy. And so I think it will come.
The way I view it is, you're right. We have the amazing potential. We have all these resources and good skills to become prosperous. And you brought a very important point about governments of the country that eventually decides how prosperous the country becomes. I mean, I'm convinced that in order to win this war, our government will be forced to become very, very efficient.
Yes.
And when we prevail, we'll be left with this efficient government and all the benefits we had prior.
Mhm.
So it's like best recipe for success that could be.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm quite optimistic about the economic future of Ukraine.
Me too, man.
Especially if the victory can come sooner
Mhm.
and doesn't cost. I'm trying to put this in mild words, but what I'm trying to say is we are losing a lot of young men
Yeah.
at the battlefield, and we will have demographical problems because of this. We weren't doing very great. We were barely meeting the
Mhm.
sustainability rate, but now we don't know what what the official figures are, but I think everybody realizes that the numbers are huge.
So I have a question to you actually about this. What's your opinion about immigration?
To Ukraine?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm all for it. Being an immigrant myself, or like for most of my life, I lived as an immigrant in Europe. I thought a lot about this, and I'm a for immigration, but like not the kind of policies that Europe implemented over the last year, where whoever can come, but like immigration policies, something like Canada or Australia has, would be great for Ukraine. There are some foreign soldiers fighting in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, and I will be advocating for them to get the citizenships. I'm convinced that they have earned the right to call themselves citizens of Ukraine, and I hope we can skip the nationalistic part of nation building, and go to more cosmopolitan society, which isn't that difficult in Ukraine. If you've been to Ukraine, it's a melting pot of cultures.
There are a lot of
Maybe
cultures.
not on. Sorry.
There are a lot of cultures there. Yes.
Yeah, it's maybe not so visible on the surface, but I would argue that right now Ukraine is probably one of very little countries around the world where you could openly wear a David star or be openly Muslim and nobody would give a shit, basically.
Yeah.
Everybody is accepted. I'm like in my unit there are guys like some are wearing the star of David and some are wearing the crescent of Islam, and it's all good. They are fighting amongst side by side, and it's never been an issue. It's never been brought up, even with things happening in Palestine right now. People find a way to coexist, and that's the beauty of Ukraine. It has always been like that. It's always been a melting pot of cultures and idea. Like on all major crossroads, we are between east and west. So it's the only way forward for us, basically.
Yeah. I mean, there was what's it called? My partner's father was what's it called? He was Mongol. I forgot what's the
Tatar.
He's Tatar. Yeah. And then there was like in the West, there's so many Jewish. There's a lot of Jewish communities, Jewish graveyards. There's a lot of Jewish people there. And then Uman, there's like that massive, like I don't know what it is, but Jewish people go to Uman for some pilgrimage.
Yeah. The like their head rabbi, the one who well inspired Zionism or Hasidism. I'm not 100% of the topic. He's buried in Uman, and they come every year for this pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And, by the way, this year was the biggest ever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We are very much open to other cultures, although you might hear other things thrown around in media. But if you look at the situation in the society on the ground, it's like it's a melting pot. Nobody knows whose background.
That's one of the things I like doing in Ukraine is I like to look at people and like, are you Germanic? Are you Slavic? Are you Romanian? Are you Hutsuli? Like
you can't even if you look at people, you see such a big variety of genetics that it can't be like all homogeneous.
Yeah,
I'll tell you a little funny story. I've met with when I got my injury in Bakhmut. I was evacuating a guy. Was actually carrying him on stretchers when I stepped on the mine, and then a friend of mine, he took me on his, when I was already injured, he took me on his back and carried me for like 150 meters and also stepped on the mine. So he also lost his foot. Yeah. And we got back together. So the guy who was wounded, who we were evacuating, and then us two. And it turned out that I'm Ukrainian. The guy who we were carrying, who was wounded by sniper fire, that we were sent to evacuate, he's Tatar.
Mm-hmm.
And then my friend who came to evacuate with me, he's Roma. So we came back together, and we were like, okay, Ukrainian, Tatar, and a Roma. It's like a beginning of a good joke, you know. Like,
and everyone gets wounded.
yeah, and everybody got wounded. But like, you know, for me, it's a matter of pride that Romas, Tatars, that they are fighting and for Ukraine, for Ukrainian under Ukrainian flag. For me, that's I couldn't be more proud, and it's
a lot
amazing.
of people fighting under that flag right now.
Yeah, and that makes me so proud.
Speaking of immigration, like the way to immigrate, like I mean, Canada and America have kind of done this very well, where they're always choosing who immigrates, and they have a selective program, and that's really the way to do it. You can't open the floodgates, but you can open to certain, like I mean, like for example, I mean, I'm not an expert in this, by the way.
Yeah, me neither. But we have experience. We lived through immigration.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
kind of makes us an expert in some
in some capacity.
Yeah,
I mean, for sure, Ukraine has to move to be more English speaking, because it just makes it easier for everyone to go in there. But I mean, yeah, I would love to see like I mean, there are so many educated like Indian people, so many like bringing in. Imagine you could bring in farmers from like, I don't know, Vietnam. I really love Vietnamese food. I would love for Vietnamese farmers to come to Ukraine and farm. But like there's, I think, if Ukraine I guess the beautiful thing, I keep on going to this ideology thing. The beautiful thing about ideology is people see it and they think that I want to be part of that. That's why a lot of people went to America. It was land of the free. You can get your own land. You can be free. You can be free from like your king, free from religion, free from that. And I think that this banner of democracy, people will respect that. People want to be under that. I think that's why so many people want to travel to Ukraine to witness it too, to be inspired by it. And sorry, go ahead. You were gonna say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you organized any trips to Ukraine past invasion with your company.
No, not. You know what? Not like a tour in the past, but I have organized trips with our donors, like they've loved it. We show them like the culture. We take them to the Carpathians. We show them like the West. We show them towards Kiev, and they see that it is there is a unique Ukrainian culture, and I guess
sure. There is unique Ukrainian culture, and there is unique Ukrainian lifestyle.
Yes.
Like I think the essence of the lifestyle is to each its own, but keep it to yourself, and then it's fine. Like you probably noticed this. We have a lot of foreign students in our universities, like from all over the world, from South Africa to Asia. So many Indians, Africans, and there are many of them staying in Ukraine, like building their life in Ukraine, and it's so inspiring for me. It's the best compliment. Like when a person decides to stay and build his life in this country.
I met such an amazing guy on a train once. He was from Saudi Arabia. He has a Ukrainian wife, lives in Chernivtsi, and he is a lecturer at Chernivtsi University for the medical program. Cool. And it's like, wow. And I mean, like, he was telling me how Ukraine has gotten so much better over the last, like he got there in like 2008, and it has gotten so much better. And he feels like,
if you would look at the development that the country and the society has made from 2008 to now, it's amazing.
It's crazy.
And for me, like I was living in Belgium from the year 2000, from like when I was 11 years old. So I finished school there. I went to the French Foreign Legion. Then I had a continued my studies in Belgium, but I always came back to Ukraine. Any opportunity I had, and I always
Yeah.
kept in touch. So for me, the changes were like I could really see them happening, because I came like once or twice a year for a few weeks, and I would like, whoa, that changed like a lot. Okay, well, you're doing this now. Okay, they're building roads. Good, way better than it was before, and like step by step, really moving into the right direction. And all this time, meanwhile, there was this sabotage from the east,
Yes.
undermining all these efforts.
Yes. It's been like this forever. Not forever.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's basically a
Since the
forever
collapse.
story. Yeah, and we
Yeah.
have to. That's the realpolitik we should be conducting, looking realistically at the dangers that other players pose, and realistically preparing ourselves for them.
Yeah.
That's the only, I think, at this point, that's the only recipe against war.
To look at it
Since
critically.
possum parabellum.
Yeah.
Like the old saying is going. If you want peace, prepare for war.
Yes. Every country has to know that.
Yeah.
I do. I want to go back to real quick about how Ukraine progresses. I just want to say this one anecdote is that
please.
in Kiev, sometimes it is so like hipster, like like trendy, like it looks like Portland, USA. With the
Yeah, I can
cafes
imagine
and
that.
all the young people, and like everyone's like I haven't seen it like that in many places. They're very progressive there.
Yeah, yeah, it's completely true. It's for me, it was like some parts of Kiev is like, is this Kiev or is this Berlin? Because like the vibe is kind of same.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
Isaac, let's round
it up. Okay.
Summarize. Well, we've talked about so many things, but explored the critical aspects of the Russo-Ukrainian conflict, the narratives where it comes from, and what narratives are still feeding it. But if there would be like one final thought that you would want every of our listener to take away from this conversation, what would that be?
That's if there's something, I guess the war in Ukraine really is the battle against authoritarianism. It's liberal democracy versus authoritarianism, and this truly does matter on a larger scale. It is not just about some person in some foreign country having their localized conflict. No, this is about the ideology that the West was founded on, that it stands on. And so if we truly believe that democracy can make a country better, that we should have the right to determine our own lives, to elect our own government, and to be not oppressed by a neighbor or some bully, then we should stand with Ukraine, because it is if we permit this, that means that our beliefs are, it's just words.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insights. And to our listeners, I would like to say, please join us in these conversations. Please comment, like, subscribe, visit Isaac's social networks, which the links to which we'll provide in the description. And please, if you have any thoughts, comments, or feedback, do not hesitate to provide. We are a very new project. We are playing with different concepts, with different formats. So if you have any thoughts or ideas, please let us know. Isaac, thank you once again for everything you have done for Ukraine and everything you are still doing. Over the course of our conversations, you have become a very dear friend of mine, and I hope to see you here in Ukraine soon, and to have a conversation, like we said, tete-a-tete, from eye to eye.
Yeah, we will. And you know what? I know a great bar in Ternopil. We'll go there.
You know a great bar in Ternopil? Oh,
know
yeah,
really
you've been
good-
here. You've been
Yes,
here,
I've
right?
been to Ternopil.
There are so many great bars in Ternopil. Like I want to take this little opportunity to promote the bars and restaurants of Ternopil, because it's probably, the price quality is the best place in Europe.
I really enjoy
Like,
Ternopil.
you can have a very gourmet meal for like 10 euros here.
Yeah.
And like with the matching decor and great service. If anybody wants to challenge me, like come over. I will prove my words.
Travel to Ukraine, people. It's good.
Anybody is welcome to come to Ternopil and try to prove me wrong. So Isaac, thank you once again, and to our listeners, please stay tuned for more on Ukraine.